All right, peace. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, give honor and praise to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. Give a double honor to everyone 30 South Chicago that taught me this truth. Give a double honor to all the brothers and sisters that the Creator has awoken in these last days. With that being said, peace and shalom. All right, brothers and sisters, we're going to be reading from an article by Wikipedia talking about the Battle of Whitestone Hill, right? How what you would call the Christian Revolution, which is aka the Catholic Church, how they was conquering the native indigenous people of the land. Sorry for the background noise. I'm at work right now, so I just thought about just doing a video. So it says the Battle of Whitestone Hill, known also as Whitestone Hill Massacre, Battle Dakota, was a battle of the Sioux Wars in 1863 in Dakota Territory as punishment against the Sioux in the aftermath of the Dakota War of 1862. From September 3rd to the 5th, 1863, the Brigadier General Alfred Sully led U.S. Army troops against a village of Yakatani Sancti and Tinton, Lakota Sioux. So when it's talking about the U.S. Army troops, a lot of those uh, people, a lot of them were Christians, brothers and sisters. And see, this is basically the pilgrims. This is the latter-day pilgrims fighting against the indigenous people of this country. Because I believe that Christopher Columbus and them came over here around the 1400s, right? So these are the Europeans that came over later on, right? So it continues. It says the reported casualties vary, but U.S. Army troops killed somewhere between 150 and 300 Sioux and captured between 150 and 250 Sioux, including women and children, and they suffered approximately 22 killed and 38 wounded, right? It says Sully arrived about 6 p.m. on the ridge overlooking the large, much dispersed Indian encampment. He estimated that only 600 to 700 of his men were present. He saw the Sioux packing up their teepees and departed and concluded that the Indians were more inclined to flee than fight. Sully's objective was to corral the Indians as he deployed his force to cut off their escape routes and to advance on the village. He sent Colonel Wilson and the 6th Iowa to his right flank and Colonel Furness and the 20 Nebraska to his left to occupy several ravines which offered the Sioux an opportunity to conceal themselves from the soldiers and escape. Covered on both flanks, Sully and 3 companies and artillery advanced into the encampment without serious opposition. 2 chiefs, Little Head and Big Head, and about 150 of their followers surrendered because of the close quarters and chaotic nature of the battle. Sully was unable to use his artillery. See, a lot of them cats, they was coming over there and see, they was stealing land, brothers and sisters. They was coming against the people. And see, prior to like the 1400s, see, they came um, speaking as a lamb, but they was a dragon though. See, and from the 1400s all the way up until now, they've been fighting these different wars against these people. And this is how America took over the land. So I'm looking at the background. It says in Dakota War 1862, a faction of the Santee Dakota or Sioux in Minnesota rose up in rebellion against the United States because of the non-payment by the U.S. government to the Sioux food and money agreed to by the treaties. It says the Sioux killed more than 600 whites, damn, mostly armed civilians. The Sioux were defeated, the leaders of the rebellion were executed, and in April 1863, nearly all Sioux, whether participants in the war or not, were forcibly expelled or ordered to leave Minnesota, and Sioux lands were cons- cons- confiscated. This caused about 4,000 Santees to flee from Minnesota to Dakota Territory, where they united with other elements of the Yakatani and Yaktan and Lakota or Teton Sioux. Sioux Wars continued to carry out small-scale raids on civilians and military targets in Minnesota. It says in mid-1863, the United States Army under General John Pope in Minnesota mounted two large military expeditions against the Sioux in eastern Dakota Territory. The objectives of the expedition were to prevent renewal of the 1862 war, promote white settlement in eastern Dakota, and protect access to the Montana Gold Field via the Missouri River. But let's go up a little bit. 1 second. It says the Sioux Wars. It says the Sioux Wars were a series of conflicts between the United States and various subgroups of Sioux people which occupied in the later half of the 19th century. It says the earlier conflict came in 1854 when a fight broke out at Fort Laramie in Wyoming when Sioux warriors killed 31 American soldiers in the Bataan Massacre. And the final came in 1890 during the Ghost Dance War. But what we got to ask ourselves is, why were they fighting these wars? They was fighting these wars because these quote unquote Christians, and see they name all these wars right here, which I'm gonna continue to do research on. But the reason why these people were fighting wars against them is because they didn't want to be colonized by the people, right? But let's look at the scripture on this. Let's turn to the book of Daniel, the second chapter, and I'm going to read verses 40 to 43. It says, "And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdue all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part is clay, and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. But there shall be in it of the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay." And see, when it's talking about miry clay and the iron, it's really talking about the 10 toes that's basically still under the influence or the spirit of the Roman Empire, right? It's because the 10 toes are basically the 10 Caucasian nations that came up out of quote unquote the empire. Because when we talk about the empire, Europe was known back then as the Holy Roman Empire. So it says the 42nd verse, it says, as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay. And why is it part of clay? It's because it's a part of the Gentile world power system. And it says, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken, because we know throughout history that you had a split between the Roman Empire. You had the eastern side of Rome, you had the western side of Rome, which was ruled by Constantine the Noble. And it says, as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou saw iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. And see, that's what we was reading when we was talking about those Sioux Wars, is that these nations, they're going to cleave themselves amongst, see, they're going to come out of Europe and they're going to start what you would call the European Renaissance, and they're going to come amongst these other nations or these indigenous nations. They're going to put them into captivity. See, they're going to steal their natural resources. They're going to put the people in slavery and things of this nature. It says, and whereas thou saw iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with miry clay. Meaning that eventually they're going to start fighting against each other. See, they're going to start fighting against each other. And that's what we're looking at today. This is why America is falling as a nation of people, is because the Creator is removing America off the scene, but not just America, really the whole European, the Euro-Gentile power structure that has been created in the earth by the Creator. Because one of the reasons why America was created in the first place to quote unquote put the so-called Negro into slavery. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, I hope that you got something out of the lesson. Peace. Shalom.